So I'm honored to be speaking with Global Choices Arctic Angel and climate justice activist live from Metro Manila, Philippines, one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. Please welcome the tireless environmental indigenous groups campaigner, Mitzi Jonelle Tan. Mitzi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for joining us today. Let's start with this. Who are the Arctic Angels and why does it matter to you?
Where do I begin? The Arctic Angels is a family, I would say, a global youth-led network of leading women, climate justice activists empowered by Global Choices. We're over 21 countries right now and soon to be more. And what's so amazing about all of us is even if we are coming from such different perspectives, such different countries, we all recognize the importance of the ice crisis and we're taking action to protect the polar ecosystems, prioritizing the unprecedented loss of the Arctic sea ice. And some people might ask, why would I in the Philippines, who has never seen snow really, care about the ice, right? But we have to remember that we cannot create parts of the climate system in isolation. They're all interconnected. And it all starts with the Arctic, which is heating faster than anywhere else in the Earth. And this has direct and indirect impacts on everybody. We're seeing the rising seas from the melting ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland, which will affect the Philippines and other island nations in particular. We're seeing how the Philippines is already the second most vulnerable. Like, we already have the second highest number of internal displacements for climate refugees, and this is just going to increase more. And the thought of leaving the Philippines, not having a choice, but to leave my own country because of the climate impact is something that hurts me a lot. And just remembering that because of the melting ice, it's changing and making weather patterns more unpredictable and contributing to wetter, stronger, and storms for us here, and a whole host of other social issues connected to that, like food insecurity. And as you mentioned, the Philippines is already the second most climate vulnerable country in the world to the climate crisis. And we have to take action on the ice crisis because it is connected and will make things worse for countries like the Philippines.
That's right. As an archipelago, that certainly is something that is your home. Hey, when you look at this, Mitzi, really quickly, what makes Arctic Angels different?
We are a passionate young group of women who have a very specific call to action, and that is to protect the ice and to act on the ice crisis.
Got it. And so you just said, you've never been to the Arctic. Seeing snow is not an everyday thing in the Philippines. What's the message that works for you when you're trying to bring awareness to others? What's I meet you in the street, I see you at a place, an eatery of some sort. What is it that works? What's the message?
The message basically is that the climate crisis is an urgent issue. Remembering that it's not just about polar bears and ice caps, but it's about people, it's about biodiversity, it's about the vitality of the ocean, it's about knowing that in 3 decades, we have already lost 28 trillion tons of ice globally. So imagine, I guess, like the UK covered in 100 meters thick of ice blanket. Mm-hmm. And we've already hit 2 degrees Celsius plus temperature in the Arctic, and we might have 10 years left before the melt becomes irrecoverable in our lifetime. And I've just thrown a bunch of numbers at you, but really I think what gets people is realizing that the ice crisis is connected to the climate crisis, and that is the reason why I grew up fearing of drowning in my own bedroom. I grew up sometimes having to have candlelit dinners or doing my homework by the candlelight because there would be no electricity because of the typhoons happening outside. This is what's happening. The climate crisis is already here, and the ice crisis is driving it.
Mitzi, one of the challenging things here, and, let's just stay in that conversation. Those that would say, well, Mitzi, nothing's happening. What are you talking about? I don't see it. All these reports, they're not real. What do you say to them in 30 seconds to get them to maybe explore this idea?
People are already dying today. If you're not seeing it, then you're just too privileged to look. It's not being hidden. It's in all the news reports. You're seeing, like, even don't look at the climate crisis reports, but look at the extreme weather events that have gotten stronger and stronger and more intense. All the signs are already there. You just need to see it.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Mitzi. You understand today's core message. and that is no climate action, no peace. No climate action, no peace. What does that mean to you?
It means that climate justice and peace are inextricably connected, and the ice crisis will have local and global exponential impacts. From food insecurity to climate refugees to resource conflicts, we've already seen, and it's already been proven that the climate crisis will exacerbate war, and war exacerbates the climate crisis already. And so they're so linked to each other. And that also means that as long as there is no climate action, people will not let up. We will keep fighting and demanding for more, no matter how that looks like.
How have you seen that very dynamic you've just described in the Philippines?
So one very clear example is actually also the reason why I became an activist in the first place. The Philippines is the second most dangerous country in the world for environmental defenders and activists, in that by saying that it's environmental defenders and activists are being murdered here. So the reason why I became a climate justice activist is because I was able to talk to an indigenous leader of our land, and they were telling us about how they were being harassed, displaced, killed, militarized, all for protecting the planet. And that's what it is. As long as there's no actual climate action, no climate justice that prioritizes people and planet at its center, people will be killed. People will be pushed aside and left behind. And it's not just murders, it's also people being left to fend for themselves against this climate crisis that we didn't cause, but the people in the global north, the world leaders, the fossil fuel industries caused.
So Mitzi, as a subject matter expert, what is your two-sentence piece of advice to those who might face situations like you've just described? What do you tell them to say, this is the way you can continue to do the good work?
I would say, remember that you're not doing this alone. So one, we are only joining the fight of our environmental defenders, our indigenous peoples, farmers, fishing communities who are already so strong. And then you also remember that there is someone on every country across the world fighting for the same thing that you are. And when you think of that, when you remember that, and you shift from a place of anger and sadness into a place of love for the people, love for humanity, and love for the planet, it's almost impossible to lose. So remember that even if it's so difficult, we are here with you. You're not doing it alone.
Mitzi, what have you learned recently that surprised you?
One of the things that really surprised me was how connected the ice crisis was to the climate crisis. So I grew up learning about melting ice caps and polar bears, and it seemed like it's something that's just been happening my entire life. And so I took it for granted. And then I learned just how much it can impact countries across the world, even miles and miles and so far away from the Arctic, yet right. This is what's happening.
In one word, what drives you, Mitzi?
Love.
Wow. I wish we had more time, Mitzi. This is certainly a great conversation. Love drives you. And I want to finish with this question. Where do you get that love from? From
knowing that I'm not alone in this, knowing that I have a family of amazing Arctic angels fighting with me, knowing that I have the support of so many people across the world. The Youth Global Climate Movement has done so much. And knowing that I am joining the indigenous peoples, this love that has come from knowing the struggle, I guess, because I know where I'm supposed to be, and this is where it is, right. And that's where it's coming from.
Mitzi, love back at you, my friend. Mitzi Jonelle Tan, live from Metro Manila, Philippines. Thanks for joining, Mitzi.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, everyone.